Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Rebel. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, obviously, Rebel is doing kind of a news program, which she's like doing an interview where she's talking about the whole trial and everything. And I think it's so fascinating. Obviously, Grady comes out in his underwear and stuff like that. It's like, you can edit this out, right? He's like, no, this is live. He's like, I should go Bulls. And then obviously, it's like he calls Rebel out. But yeah, she basically took our daughter's entire college fund, so she better win. I'm like, that's kind of a dick move to put her on blast like that. But also, it's like Rebel's like, tell everyone, Ziggy, you willingly gave it up. It's like, yeah, I did. Okay. It's like, oh, it's all good and everything, and it's like, ha ha ha, he's laughing and stuff like that, and it's just pissing Lana off, and Lana confronts him about it, and it's like, is it true that you have a son? I was like, oh boy, and the look in his face, you're like, because you want to give him a bit of a doubt. I was like, maybe he didn't know he had a kid, maybe he had an affair, but he didn't know he had a kid. But it's like, no, you've known the entire time. Because it makes him such a hypocrite, because he's always been like, once again, it's just like, because it's like, once again, I talked about it. You want to go full circle on Grady. You kind of went a little full circle on Grady, at least I did. Because at the beginning, I was like, first episode, what a tool, what a douchebag. Then more episodes, Grady's not as bad. He's warming my heart. And it's like, when he was getting pissed at Rebel, it's like, it's understandable. So, I wasn't digging on him too much. But now it's like, nah, you kind of have to dig in on him, because, he wants to act like he has the more high ground. It's like, you're working too much, you're taking Ziggy's college fund. It's like, and you've basically been lying to not only your daughter, but also your wife that, you have a secret child. If he'd probably been upfront about I had an affair, it's just like he said nothing in the past 9 or so years about it, so that's why it's even worse. So, but obviously Lana's like, you go away for a week, this will come out after the trial, because Rebel, if she finds out, she's going to be pissed, and the fact of the matter is, she's going to be so rage-filled. That's not what this trial needs right now, so you need to go away. It's like, what's happening? It's like, Grady didn't tell you he's going fishing, and it's like, because Lana's trying to do her best because for her, she feels like it's like, this is the whole point, because now I know it's true, because she's like, I didn't want to look into it, because she was like, I was hoping that it wasn't true, but she's like, this is exactly what Stormore wanted. In particular, is what Angela wanted. That's why she dropped this bomb on Lana, because she knew Lana would have no choice but to look into it, because Rebel is, former sister-in-law, but still a sister to her best friend. So it's like, I have to look out for her. So she was kind of hoping that this would happen anyway. So he kind of goes off. Side note, I love that because Grady's going, and so is Rebel, that Sean and Ziggy do the whole thing of I love that they have to plan out their sex. It's like, I guess the troubles of being a teenager, trying to have sex in your own home or whatever, because it's it's like, okay, we're going to keep our tops on, and that way we could quickly get dressed and stuff like that. It's like Ziggy planned this out. That's crazy. And then it's they do their thing, and then it's like Rebel's on the way. Oh crap, there's a camera. I'm like, how did you not account for that? I guess she just didn't think about it. It's just like, oh crap, I just admitted on the camera that we had sex. And so Sean was able to kind of hack into it. And then they ended up finding out about Lana and Grady's conversation. You're like, ooh, not how you wanted that to kind of come out. Not for Ziggy to find out like that too. That was interesting. And obviously for her, it's a lot to process. And it's for her, it's I want to get high right now, but instead she stays with she's staying at Nate's place. Thought that was kind of fascinating. So there's that side of things. Obviously, there's a whole situation. We're trying to track down this chemist because he won't testify, which obviously Cruz is upset by, because it's like, damn it, we need him, especially because Maddie doesn't want to testify, and eventually Dan the man ended up pulling out as well, which we'll kind of break that down in a second. But it's like Cruz is kind of upset with Rebel, because it's like, right, I didn't dig up Sharon because you assured me that you were going to have the chemist, but apparently you don't. She's like, I'm working on this, I got it, don't worry, he's as good as yours. So obviously Daniel's his testimony or whatever, or at least his story gets put out there, and you have Cassidy being like, freaking Luke cried about it. He's like, I'm sorry, and then even your boy Benji was kind of like, oh, he's more concerned about, them, and he's kind of wiping his face, and even Cassidy being like, you two? It's so interesting that, like, how this story touched both of them, and just Cassidy just one just kind of like, wait, what? I guess it's because more so for her, it's like she is feeling something, but it's like the fact is you're supposed to be the hardened lawyers and stuff like that. But because the sad truth is, like, Daniel was kind of short of breath and stuff like that, and then the students found out and they funded him the money necessary to get the heart valve and everything. And for him, it's like it worked for a while. He was good until 2 years later when it started killing him. And now for him, it's like what hits him the most is like they did so much for me, and it was all for him. It's almost like it was all for nothing. Like I'm actually worse off than I was. And for him, he feels bad for all that those kids did for him, And it's like he's more concerned about what they went through that kind of went above and beyond for him. So it's like it's kind of touching. And so obviously, Rebel gets the chemist's husband to kind of force him to come over to Daniel's house, but Daniel's packing. And for him, it's like, I was like, oh, because I was worried, like legitimately I was worried, like, oh, please don't tell me like this was fake somehow, like he isn't who he claims to be, that, like, but it's like, no, like someone approached him, it's like, yeah, someone's trying to buy my house for like double what it's worth. I don't know whether it was stolen or whether it's actually a nice couple or whatever, but the fact is, I'm selling, because for him, it's like, I'm sorry, I'm kind of leaving you high and dry, but the fact of the matter is I'm dying, I'm suffering, and the fact is I don't want to just spend the last bit of my life doing this, because it's like I'm too sick to even get the surgery necessary to remove the valve. So for him, it's like there's no helping me, so I don't want to spend the last bit of my time here just kind of dying miserably. So he wants to go to why he wants to kind of just live life a little bit, And Rebel doesn't really say much. She just listens and pats him on the shoulder because it's like, right, I understand. I'm not going to force you. At the end of the day, because he's someone that wanted to take the settlement from the very beginning. But it's just like, I have a limited amount of time. I want to do something other than my life than live. And even obviously, like, the chemist is trying to offer him something. He's like, really? You want me to trust the guy who gave me the thing that's killing me currently? And it's just like, trust me. He wants him to kind of go through this regimen, which Rebel ends up bringing this up to Misha, and Misha kind of explains that basically him saying that is basically him acknowledging that that the valve is poisoning people. So, but despite everything, he's like, I get it. He's like, honestly, you're infuriating, but honestly, I do like you as a person. And he's telling Rebel, like, maybe when it's at a different point in time, we could actually go and grab beers and stuff like that. But he refuses to testify. And he says something I thought was so fascinating, where he was like, you're trying to help these people, but you're not. You're actually doing more harm. I'm actually trying to help them. I'm like, how are you? That's why I was so confused. I was like, he's like, there's only so much I can say. I was like, did you sign like an NDA or something? Like because I was like, if that was the case, he would say I signed an NDA and I can't say anything. But I'm like, why are you like dodging this? Because that would be the simplest explanation. But I'm like, what are you doing? And so obviously Cruz using the analogy of I'm Charlie Brown, and it's like, and Rebel's Lucy with the football. It's just like I keep trusting that the football is going to be there, and I'm kicking it, and I fall on my ass every time. Not his exact words, but the analogy still, that's the full swing of the analogy. So, and it's like, she's like, no, I'm going to get this. I got a good plan. I'm going to work on it. And Cruz is like, the sad thing is, I do believe her. So, what they end up doing is they go to Flynn, which Flynn's like, no, go away. I'm not trying to help you like this. Which is so interesting, because under certain circumstances, I guess because Lana's situation is like, no, this person hurt Lana. Tell me you're afraid for your life. Okay, and I did some digging for you. I think that's like where he'll skirt the line, because it's like when like Lana got hurt in the process of like chasing after Angela, and it's kind of her fault. So like Angela's fault is what I mean. So I think in that particular case, I'm looking out for you, but it's like, man, I'm not going to go. It's like basically put out like, because the chemist, his husband is worried, because it's like, right, like you're speeding certain places. He's like, I'm afraid. Legitimately, he's like, because you're so distressed about this, I'm actually afraid you're going to kill yourself on the road. Like that, your guilt about this whole thing, because you are the one, because he's the one that made the coding for the valve and everything. So they went through this whole situation of basically getting him kind of arrested. Kind of forcing Flynn's hand, and I even love the whole thing of like they're all sitting around eating special cheese and stuff, like cheese from all over around the world and stuff like that. It's, hey, Cruz, want some of this cheese from all around the world? It is interesting because Rebel's like, yeah, so what if he gets added to the witness list? So what does that matter? Like Cruz is like, it's just astounding just like how little you do know about the law and stuff like that, about like, because she knows enough to kind of get by, but obviously like Cruz is like the main dude for like handling the law and stuff like that, obviously being the lawyer and everything. But nevertheless, they were able, because even Benji and them were blindsided, because it's like, right, the chemist, it's like, whoa, he wasn't on the list of people that actually works at Stonewall. It's because it's a tactic, because he's actually labeled under like a subsidiary. But like Cruz brings it up, like, no. Even subsidiaries are part of like the disclosure, like that we wanted, like every, like all this information. It's like it should have been given to us, even if he works as a subsidiary. That was still part of the deal of kind of disclosing information to us. So basically they do a closed room thing where it's like the judge will decide whether or not his testimony is worth kind of being brought out to the, so it's like it's going, and so he does admit, right, he made the coding and everything, and it's like, okay, so basically it didn't mix well with something, and basically nickel is kind of like being created, and that's what's kind of going through people's bodies. And it's like, so did you tell anyone? And he's like, he told his superior, who told his superior, who eventually even told Mark Duncan. But Mark told him, all right, don't say anything to anybody and try and fix it. So that's what I think, that's what it's all about. That's why he was saying, like, you think you're helping these people, but you're not. I am. Because for him, it's like, if this comes out, I won't have the job and position to actually help these people. I could fix the valve. But the thing is, some of those people don't, because that's something that Cruz was saying too, is like, some of these people don't have time. It's already too late for some people. Like Daniel, once again, he can't actually get the surgery to remove the valve, so he's just kind of stuck with it, And then, other people, it's already done irreparable damage. Maddie, she's already lost her baby because of this. So it's a thing of like, wanting to fix it is fine and dandy, but it's also the thing of like, also, proves that, like, no, like, Stonewall knew, and they try to cover it up, and yet you're trying to fix it and stuff like that, but the fact is you're going above and beyond to, like, pretend like it isn't an issue. But like I said, I think that's why the chemist was saying, like, because by Rebel digging all of this up, you're stopping me from doing my job, which is actually trying to fix the valve. To be fair, the guilt is already getting to you to the point your husband's noticing, and the fact is he's worried and scared out of his mind. So I guess that's mainly why he was worried, because he's trying to fix the valve, and he's worried, like, because so many people's lives are on the line, so it's up to him to fix it. Because I think for him, it's like he blames himself, because it's like, right, the coding kind of went wrong, so that's why I think it's even more guilt kind of on his part because of that. I just thought that was a fascinating aspect of it. So, and obviously for Rebel, she's talking to his husband, and it's like, oh, you guys have been together, what's your anniversary? It's like 17 years, probably won't make it to 18. And Rebel understands, she's like, right, I've been married to Grady, and the fact is that yeah, we've had our issues, but it's like, you kind of fight your way through, like you manage to kind of pull through no matter kind of what adversities kind of come your way, which obviously Londa's just there the entire time, like, the fact is, we need to see the men in our lives for who they are, which the entire time Rebel's like, what is that all about? And it's just like, okay. So obviously, they're kind of on the winning side, because now it's like, yes, they kind of stuck at the stone more. Because despite Benji's best efforts, that's kind of a slam dunk situation with the chemist's testimony and stuff. So, and it leads to an interesting conversation, because in that moment, like, Cassie's feeling a certain way, and she goes to her dad about it, and he's like, yeah, that's a funny word, feelings, like, it's a complicated thing, because he's like, it's like, he's like, ask her first and foremost, like, what do you want, like, do you want me to respond as your boss or your dad? And she's like, dad. And it's like, for him, it's like, you need to decide who you are more of. Like, obviously, your mom, you're a little me. At the end of the day, you have to figure out who you are more of, and kind of follow down that path. But speaking as your boss, you need to put your feelings in a box, like, and put it on top shelf. Don't even touch it until the trial's over, because like feelings will get in the way of you doing what you're doing. And it's a complicated thing. Like, it's always the thing you always have to consider with lawyers. Like, it is that thing of like, oh, how can you represent the people you represent? But it is also that thing of, you've seen that in other, I've seen that kind of brought up in other shows. It's like, by taking on these big cases, it gives you the money and resources to take on the smaller cases, those kind of pro bono cases. So he kind of talks in a similar vein of like, basically, by taking on these cases that may feel icky and wrong, you're able to help, though, by giving these people this type of case, the big ones, the best absolute defense, that because of the law, you are able to do the same exact thing for the smaller cases too. So it is kind of a double-edged sword, because it's like, yeah, you might have to represent and give some scummy person the best defense possible, but at the same time, the law balances it out by making it so that you do the same thing for the smaller cases too. So that is something interesting and complicated about the law. Like I said, I look at that as a bit of a double-edged sword. It's like the pros and the cons and pros of it, like, because something can be up, literally both simultaneously. It's an interesting dynamic in that line of work. So, but obviously Cassie wants to like have casual sex with Luke, and they do, which is kind of weird that it's like, oh, you kind of did it in my bed, and it's like, oh, that's okay. I guess they're living. Are they living together? Do they own that place together? She does stay there more often than not, so I'm assuming like she does like stay there from time to time, or maybe she does straight up live there. So it's like, oh, because like the room that they were in apparently was Nate's. So that's weird. But regardless, like, because it's interesting because they're doing their like super casual thing, but then you had like Nate and Misha with him being like, oh no, all that stuff I said, don't worry about it. I was drunk and all that, which Nate went off with Maddie this episode. For him, it's like, nah, I don't care if you testify or not. All I care about you. He's like, the fact is that, as someone who had some like anger issues towards his parents, like someone he knew took him bowling, and it's like, oh, taking something heavy and smashing stuff, it kind of alleviates some of that. So he kind of wanted to do the same thing for Maddie. It's like, I care about you, just making sure that you're talking to somebody, so. And it turns out Nate's like, yeah, it ultimately ended up helping and ended up working out. So, but then Misha's like, okay, like, I kind of want to try this monogamous thing. And I even love that. It was really sweet. She was like, yeah, your eyes remind me of like this blue blanket that I had when I was younger, and it made me warm. She's like, yeah, your eyes remind me of that. And it's like, oh, he said something about her eyes last episode, and now she's saying this because basically she got burned in a previous relationship because she ended up being with a guy that was actually married, and she found that out afterwards. So she's like, yeah, like, you did kind of like ghost me, but the fact of the matter is you have proven yourself over and over again, and you said you were just drunk, but we both kind of accepted it, even though we both know that wasn't true. So she's willing to give this a try. To be fair, what's interesting is Luke threw that out there this episode of trying to discredit Misha by being like, oh, she's in a relationship with Nate, and by, Nate could skew her results to lean more towards what they want because they're in a relationship. So now that they have gone more monogamous, and Cassidy knows that now, that could get used against them potentially in the next episode. That's a whole thing within itself. So there's that. But obviously Ziggy shows up there. Yeah, I need to stay here. I can't deal with all that right now. So it's like, oh, we have another sibling. And it's like, I don't know what that makes it what that makes it to you guys. I guess it's like your step sibling too. It's a whole thing. So that's interesting. So that's a lot to deal with. Rebel obviously finding out because Sean's like, oh yeah, I don't know where, yeah, she found out a rumor about her dad. It's like, I don't think I should say anything. And Lana's like, you shouldn't. Which we kind of found out one of her reasons why she's not trying to go away with Rick. It's like, I'm not canceling Rick, but the fact of the matter is, he decided, instead of asking me where I wanted to go, he decided like, oh, this is where we're going. So for her, it's like, I'm not canceling him. It's just a red flag that I noticed. So, obviously it comes out, Rebel confronts Grady. And once again, it's the thing of, right, they were separated, but it still doesn't make it okay because it's like you've been lying this entire time about it. And he pays child support, but she's like, with what money? He's like, I repair cars. She's like, yeah, not a lot. So basically, you've been taking my money to take care of a child I knew nothing about. Like, I'm not trying to hold, like, she's kind of holding it against him, but it's like the lies and everything. Which she's like, oh, it always comes back to money to you. Which I find that hypocritical because, like, you're jumping down her throat about the money needed for Ziggy's college fund. So is it about the money? Is it not about the money? But the thing for him, it's like, oh, like, the fact is, it's always been about money in our relationship. And the fact is that you're the breadwinner and I'm not. Like, maybe that's what it is. Excuse me. So I think that's kind of an issue in its own right for them. But for him, it's like, I'm trying to be a good, decent guy. And I love that having this whole argument. There are people nearby in their boats. Somebody's filming it. I'm like, kind of probably not the best time to have this argument because this is probably going to probably having a big impact on the case, especially like when like, you know, like obviously he was tired of like her judgments and stuff like that. You know, like, I think Rebel has a right to be mad, especially considering you were going to divorce her behind her back. But for her, it's like you keep lying all the time. And it's like every time she keeps turning, like, the other cheek, kind of, like, turning away, ignoring those lies and stuff like that. Which, you know, even Lana was like, yeah, like, Rebel kind of has blinders when it comes to you, so... But Grady kind of does a dick move, and he drives off, and she falls off in the water, and she's like, I can't believe you're still driving. So, I mean, to be fair, he's a little drunk, so I'm sure he's going to regret that later on, because now Ziggy knows. But he also brought up the thing of, like, right, we were in a bad place, and then, like, I think what happened was, like, she popped up with Ziggy. He was, like, probably like, oh, you didn't have the conversation with me, and it's like, oh, so it almost makes it sound like, oh, do you regret having our daughter? Which he's, like, probably like, no, it's not that. It's just, like, you kind of sprung that on me, and, like, we weren't necessarily in a good place at the time, so I had an affair. The kid also doesn't help. It's like, right, the kid also doesn't know I exist, doesn't know I'm his dad and everything, so that's a whole thing. So, that's definitely going to play a big role next episode, but obviously at the end, like, Cruz gets a call, and it's like, oh, Rebel did what? And when we see her getting arrested, so I don't know whether it's like the public situation or maybe like after everything that happened with Grady, she went off and did something crazy and got arrested, which I'm sure that's going to have a major impact on her case. Whatever that thing was that she did. I was like, I don't see her getting like thrown off the boat as like maybe she was kind of causing a scene and the police got called and that's why she got arrested. But I don't see that happen. I mean, maybe it didn't. I mean, maybe afterwards, like. Once again, we don't know what Rebel did. Maybe next episode we'll find out. But it's definitely going to be interesting to see where all of this ends up taking us as things get working well in the trial, but you can definitely see the pendulum potentially swinging the other way. Not necessarily 100% because of this Rebel thing, but maybe something else. At the very least, maybe this can impact, because they'll probably most likely use this against Rebel. So we'll have to wait and see. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, love life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.